In this section, we'll be going through some of the special inspections that are going to be required on DSA projects. We'll start out with structural steel that are going to be found in CBC section 1705A. Note there are a few items on this slide listed in red underlined font, so those are going to be items that are new or changed in the 2019 CBC compared to last code. So in the first sub-bullet, there's some modifications to reference AISC 360 Chapter N to maintain inspection requirements. This is going to be consistent with the 2016 CBC, but there are some modifications within that chapter that are new for the new 2019 code. So the quality assurance provisions in AISC 360 and 341 are not adopted. Those are going to be replaced by the information in table 1705A.2.1. Also, the contractor quality control, the QC, and non-destructive testing provisions in AISC 360 and 341 are adopted. But note, if you recall the QA/QC definitions, that the QC is going to be by the contractor and the QA will be by the others, like the inspector, project inspector, and so on. Also, there are some modifications that you'll want to take a look at in table 1705A.2.1. For cold form steel deck in CBC 1705A.2.2, there's some special inspection required for steel and floor deck, and that's going to be in accordance with the Steel Deck Institute SDI QA/QC provisions. Also, the deck weld special inspection is going to have to satisfy the CBC 1705A.2.5 as well as table 1705A.2.1. And then the last bullet for steel joist and joist girder inspection, that's going to be found in CBC 1705A.2.3.1. And since DSA does not approve fabricators, that means that the continuous special inspection is required during manufacturing and welding of the steel joist. So light framed steel truss inspection is in CBC 1705A.2.4.1. Again, DSA doesn't approve fabricators, so and it is also clarified as noted here in the red font for the 2019 CBC that regardless of the truss span, special inspection is going to be required during manufacturing of the cold form light framed steel trusses. There's also a reference to CBC 2211A.1.3.3 for some additional information. And then inspection of structural welding is going to be in CBC 1705A.2.5, and it maintains welding special inspection requirements for all shop and field welding. And then this new item here in the red underline has added some non-destructive testing requirements, and that's going to match DSA IR 17-2 that you can find on the DSA webpage. It does require conformance with the AWS D1.1, D1.3, and new in the 2019 CBC is added D1.4, and then D1.8 was a carryover from the last code. So this is a new section, CBC 1705A.2.6, that has been added for special inspection and test for high strength fasteners. It also aligns the requirements with IR 17-9 for the high strength bolt special inspection certifications, and also references other high strength bolting applicable CBC chapter sections. So moving on to concrete construction, this will be in CBC 1705A.3. Also in parentheses there is the inspection card manual, section 2.3 that would apply for this. Note that special inspection is still exempt for patios, driveways, and sidewalks and on-grade construction. DSA does continue the non-exemption of footings and ground-supported slabs, though. If you note that IBC does exempt those, but DSA does not. And batch plant inspections can be found in CBC 1705A.3.3. Continuous batch plant special inspection is continued from the 2016 code. There is a waiver of continuous batch plant inspection that you'll find in this section. Periodic is going to be required for this case, which means that the first batch is going to be special inspected, licensed weighmaster, and needs to have the batch tickets with the project inspector records. Also, single-story light frame building waiver is maintained. I do want to point out that DSA is working on a new IR that's going to be coming out probably in the next few weeks or months that's going to provide some additional guidance regarding batch plant inspection. There are also some cases where batch plant inspection can be waived entirely. It's not required at all. This is going to be in CBC 1705A.3.3.2. So it would eliminate batch plant inspection for less critical applications, such as site flat work, unenclosed site structures. So if you had like a shade structure or just a retaining wall, isolated retaining wall, or bleachers, or for CLSM or slurry backfill, and then also for single-story relocatable buildings if they're less than 2160 square feet. Weighmaster and batch ticket is still required for these cases. Also, the design professional needs to identify these conditions or exemptions on the DSA approved drawing so that everyone's on the same page for what requires the batch plant inspection and not. In CBC 1705A.3.4, outlines inspection and testing of pre-stressed concrete. Note that the and testing shown in red font that's new for the 2019 CBC. Continuous inspection is required for all plant fabrication of pre-stressed concrete members and tensioning of post-tension members that are constructed on site. In the 2019 code, in that sub-bullet, there is an exception that was added to clarify that continuous special inspection is not required during site placement of post-tensioning. In CBC 1705A.3 in the table has required special inspection and test of concrete construction. Note in the first sub-bullet that the project inspector needs to verify installers of adhesive anchors in horizontal and upwardly inclined positions. Those installers need to be ACI, CRSI certified adhesive anchor installers. There are some exceptions that are allowed or permitted based on low loads and non-structural applications. So if you have an anchor that's, say, less than 100 pounds, then it may be exempt, but it does need to be identified on the drawings and noted as one of the exceptions in the appendix of the DSA 103 form. Also, note that the alternates to ACI CRSI certification that's allowed in ACI 318 section 17.8.2.2, those are not permitted by DSA due to the footnote C that's found in table 1705A.3. Also, there are a lot of reference pointers that have been added to this table in the 2019 code. And then also in CBC 1705A.3.7 and 1705A.3.8, there's some new reference pointers that have been added in the 2019 code that point to requirements in the CBC Chapter 19A. Masonry construction requirements are going to be found in CBC 1705A.4. Note that masonry quality assurance refers to TMS 402, tables 3 and 4, and then level 3 QA. Note that the items in the red font, tables 3 and 4, level 3, are going to be different compared to the 2016 code. Also, there is an amendment in CBC that requires level 3 quality assurance instead of the TMS 402 default, which is level 2 for schools. So the level 3 helps to align the QA program for DSA with the Field Act and then also with CBC Chapter 21A. And for masonry post-installed anchors, those all need to be inspected and tested, the same as the requirements for concrete post-installed anchors that we've already covered. And then in CBC 1705A.4.1, you'll find the glass unit masonry and masonry veneer requirements in risk categories 2, 3, or 4. There is an amendment that requires level 2 QA for glass unit masonry and veneer for all schools. Also, risk category 2 and 3 has been added compared to the main model code. The required special inspection for wood construction is going to be found in CBC section 1705A.5. I want to start out by going through an item that's probably going to be a little bit confusing. This is regarding 1705A.5.2 with changes to metal plate connected wood trusses. Unfortunately, there was a printing error in the 2018 IBC that got carried over into the CBC. That printing error was fixed as an errata to the 2018 IBC. Unfortunately, because of the way the rulemaking works for the CBC, that errata could not be fixed in the CBC as well. So we're stuck with the mistaken printing. Really what this is regarding is special inspection requirements for truss members. And the way the wording reads, it says for permanent restraints bracing of individual truss members for gang nail trusses 60 inches or more in depth or height, that they need to be special inspected. Or for temporary installation restraints bracing for gang nail trusses spanning 60 feet or more. So that's the way it's printed in there. Really what it was supposed to be, and this is going to be the same as it was in the 2016 code, and is how it should be in the 2019 code, and this is what DSA will be enforcing. So special inspection is going to be required for permanent individual truss members and temporary installation restraints and bracing for gang nail trusses spanning 60 feet or more. So the whole 60-inch depth really doesn't factor in. It's just whether or not it spans 60 feet or more. And again, that should be past practice for what you're used to doing from the 2016 code, but that should be carried over into the 2019 as well. So that's the first sub-bullet there. The second sub-bullet, this is 1705A.5.4 for structural glue laminated timber, or glue lams. This is going to be in inspection card manual section 2.3. So continuous special inspection by a DSA certified glue lam special inspector is going to be required during manufacturing of all glue lam timber. There are some exceptions if it's less than 5 1/8 inch width by 18 inch depth, or if it's less than a 32-foot span or non-custom members. So those would be some items when the continuous inspection is not required. There's a lot more information on this that you can find in DSA Bulletin 17-03, so I'd encourage you to check that out as well. And lastly, in the red font there is an updated reference standard for this. That will be found in ANSI APA A190.1 in section 13.1. Manufactured open web trusses are going to be covered in CBC 1705A.5.5. Continuous special inspection is required during manufacture of open web trusses. Also, for timber connectors, those are going to be covered in CBC 1705A.5.6. Continuous special inspection is going to be required during the installation of split rings, shear plates, and timber rivets. Soil fills are going to be addressed in CBC 1705A.6.1. So all fills supporting building structure foundations are going to require continuous special inspection by a geotechnical engineer or qualified representative. Also, there's some reference pointers that have been added in CBC 1705A.6.2 and 1705A.6.3 in the 2019 code. And then in CBC 1705A.7.1, for driven deep foundations, installation has to be continuously inspected by a qualified representative of the geotechnical engineer. In CBC 1705A.12.4, there has the special inspection requirements for special seismic certification. The special inspector has to examine equipment components that require special seismic certification in accordance with CBC 1705A.13.3 or in ASC 7 section 13.2.2. The second bullet is a new item in 2019 CBC 1705A.12.6. So item 6, the model code clarifies special inspection of the MEP equipment. In distribution systems, clearances from fire sprinklers can either be by item 6.1, which is ASC 716, section 13.2.3, or in item 6.2, it's a 3-inch minimum. So always check the construction documents for possible larger clearances that could occur. Also note that the admin code language for project inspection, continuous inspection is going to govern over the CBC periodic special inspection. Also recall that IR 25-2 for suspended ceiling systems has a requirement for 6-inch minimum clearance for the T-bar support bracing wires from any unbraced MEP components. Non-structural components or manufacturer certification are going to be found in CBC 1705A.13.2. There is an amendment that allows fire sprinkler seismic sway braces that satisfy FM 1950 to be deemed seismically qualified. This is consistent with NFPA 13. There is alternative testing that's allowed when submitted to and approved by DSA. Special seismic certifications can be in CBC 1705A.13.3. It does clarify certification methods and range of products to be tested when required by ASC 7, section 13.2.2. Note that experienced data is not allowed. Also, active or energized equipment components do require shake table test, conforming with ICC acceptance criteria 156. Has to have at least 2 tests minimum, unless it's ISO 9001 certified. For multi-component systems, connecting elements, attachments, and supports can be justified via analysis that gets submitted to and approved by DSA. And for fire-resistant penetrations and joints are going to be found in CBC 1705A.17. There is a new item that clarifies special inspection is also applicable to many common DSA projects, so for risk category 2, 3, or 4. And shotcretes can be found in CBC 1705A.19. All shotcrete work has to be continuously special inspected by a DSA certified special inspector while it's being placed. This includes 3 3-inch diameter cores that are taken from areas that the designer chooses for visual examination. And those should usually be in the most heavily congested areas that are likely to have problems. There's also some new items that clarify testing requirements from ACI 506.2 will apply.